You are listening to the Adult Sabbath School lessons for the third quarter of 2022. This is lesson number 5 of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide in the Crucible with Christ. This lesson is titled Extreme Heat and is ready for teaching on July 30. The author is Pastor Gavin Anthony, who was conference president in Iceland when he wrote this series of lessons. Today your lesson is read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Friday, July 29. From Patriarchs and Prophets, pages 129 and 130, we read, God has always tried his people in the furnace of affliction. It is in the heat of the furnace that the dross is separated from the true gold of the Christian character. Jesus watches the test. He knows what is needed to purify the precious metal, that it may reflect the radiance of his love. It is by close testing trials that God disciplines his servants. He sees that some have powers which may be used in the advancement of his work, and he puts these persons upon trial. In his providence, he brings them into positions that test their character. He shows them their own weaknesses and teaches them to lean upon him. Thus his object is attained. They are educated, trained, and disciplined, prepared to fulfill the grand purpose for which their powers were given them. End of quote. And from Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 316. If in the providence of God we are called upon to endure trials, let us accept the cross and drink the bitter cup, remembering that it is a Father's hand that holds it to our lips. Let us trust him in the darkness as well as in the day. Can we not believe that he will give us everything that is for our good? Even in the night of affliction, how can we refuse to lift heart and voice in grateful praise when we remember the love to us expressed by the cross of Calvary? And that brings us to our 4 discussion questions for this week. 1. In class, have someone recount his or her own test of faith that, if not quite as intense as Abraham's, was still hard enough. What can you learn from that person's experience from his or her successes or failures? 2. Review the last 24 hours of Christ's life before his crucifixion. What extremes did he face? How did he endure? What principles can we take from his example and apply for ourselves when we are in the midst of our own crucibles? 3. Discuss the idea touched on this week about how through our own suffering we can minister to others who are suffering. No matter how true it might be, what are some of the problems we might encounter with this idea? And 4. Ellen G. White wrote above, let us trust him in the darkness as well as in the day. That's easier said than done. How can we help each other develop the kind of faith that will enable us to do just that? Why is it important to trust God in the bad times? Inside Story. Our mission story continues this week with Sibylla. Thank you, Sibylla.
Crashing a Baptism, Part 5 by Andrew McChesney. The day of Junior's baptism arrived. 5 people, including Junior, were to be baptized at 4 p.m. at Alpha Seventh-day Adventist Community Church in Manaus, Brazil. I won't go, Father said. Drive me to the temple. On the way to church, Mother wondered out loud whether Father might still show up in his high priestly robes from the Candomblé temple. I don't care if Father comes in all his robes, Junior said. I'll accept him. At the church, Pastor Ricardo announced that Junior would be baptized first and invited him to share his story as he stood near the baptismal pool. Junior shared how he was bullied at school and his classmates Clifferson had invited him to a video gamers club that sang about Jesus and discussed the Bible. When Junior finished, he waded into the baptismal pool and turned around to look at the congregation. At that moment, Father, wearing his priestly robes, entered the sanctuary. Mother burst into tears. He's here, she said. He said he wouldn't come, but he's here. Heads turned to look at the back of the hall. Mother prayed silently, and church members familiar with Father's work also prayed. Others stared in amazement at Father's flowing robes. Everyone treated him with respect. A church deacon stood beside Father, greeting him. "Welcome, Eduardo," said the deacon. "Roberto Fernandez. We were waiting for you. Come." He led Father to the baptismal pool where Junior was waiting to be baptized. A million thoughts filled Junior's mind. God planned everything, he thought. No one knew in advance that I would be baptized first, and Father arrived just as I entered the pool. God's plans are perfect. Each of the 5 baptisms was supposed to take 10 minutes, but Junior's lasted an hour. Several friends from the Video Gamers Club stood up to praise God for Junior's decision and to encourage him to be faithful. Pastor Ricardo asked the Pathfinders to sing, and everyone joined in. As Junior came out of the water, the Pathfinders joyfully waved their yellow scarves. Junior, dripping wet, hugged Father. "Daddy, despite your religion, I love you very much," he said. Looking at the audience, he added, "I thank you for being here, but most of all, I thank my Father for being here." Then Father addressed Junior. "Son, I accept your religion because many supernatural things have happened," he said. "I have kept you away from my religion this whole time, and I didn't want you to become involved in any religion. However, I accept your religion because I sense a supernatural energy right now. I only hope that my own path to Jesus isn't painful." As the family got into the car afterward, Father said, "This is such a nice place, and the people are so nice." He was beaming with joy.
This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.